Welcome back to AP World History. This is part two. We're talking about Asia being transitioned, incorporated into the world economy. This will be brought about by the Europeans. We left off talking about Christianity spreading in the East. Um, Not too many inroads were made in the Muslim countries because of Islam, and also in Southeast Asia, in Java, that area, firmly controlled by the Muslim faith. India, you have Buddhists and you have Hindus who don't really accept the Christian faith. Although Xavier and Nobly will try to blend in as Ricky and other Jesuit priests, adopting the customs and the language and their dress, they're still viewed as outsiders. Confucianism is firmly planted in China, and Christianity at that time is not making too much of an inroad. When Japan is open for a while, Christian Jesuit priests will come there and convert the Japanese. Eventually, the shogun will see this as somewhat of a threat to him, and he will decide that the Christians need to be expelled, and if they weren't expelled, they were killed. And literally, hundreds of thousands of people will be killed in Japan, and they will shut themselves off from Christianity. And to a certain extent, that is still true in Japan. There's just a very small minority of people, less than 1% of the population is Christian. Where in other places in Asia, such as South Korea, it is the predominant religion. Certainly, Christianity has made some inroads in China. And the Philippines, at this time, as we talked about before, was the most receptive to the Christian church, the Catholic Church, and still is a predominantly Catholic church, as well as the lower islands being Muslim. Uh, but as Europeans come, they bring their religion, and it's accepted on a limited basis in most places. Here's a picture of Francis Xavier bringing the Word of God, the Christian faith, to India. Robert Nobly doing the same. Now, let's turn our attention to the Ming Dynasty. We talked about the Ming Dynasty replacing the Yuan Dynasty, which were the Mongols. They will last for a little over 200 years, and then the Manchu dynasty will take over and take us into the 20th century. Zhu Zhang is the first emperor of the Ming Dynasty. He will change his name to Hong Yu. He was a peasant, he was a military leader, and he will force out the Mongols. He will institute some reforms in China. Again, the Confucius testing system for bureaucrats, and if you wanted to become part of the government, you had to pass a test. They will promote art and culture, and the most talented individuals will rise to the top. He always was interested in limiting the power of the scholarly gentry, the wealthy in China, so that he could maintain a firm grip on the government. Later, Ming rulers will relax some of the rules, but while he's in charge, Hongzhu will attempt to increase his power. Uh, the Ming dynasty is somewhat interested in trade, but they always had limited the traders, even from India and the Middle East, to a couple of places, Macau and Canton, and these were the roads, inroads that the Europeans will trade with the Chinese. The Chinese are really not that interested in European commodities. They are interested in silver, and The Spanish and the Portuguese will supply a great deal of that to buy silk and porcelain and other items of value to Western European nations. Um, so the Americas are going to be instrumental in supplying the vast quantities of silver and gold that will end up in the pockets of the Ming Dynasty. The Ming Dynasty was interested in trade for a while, but then as they pull back, Sheng He is the admiral, the eunuch that leads this armada to Africa, the Middle East, India, Southeast Asia, and this will last for about 30 years. There'll be trouble at home, and also the Ming Dynasty rulers will see it as too expensive, and they will pull back. And as they pull back, this is about the time that, in a short period of time, the Portuguese will be rounding the Cape of Good Hope, and then they will establish trade routes to India and then Southeast Asia. And then they'll be followed by the Dutch and the English and the Spanish and the French. And again, the ports are where they have contact with the locals. And not until about 1750 do you see a transition where they start taking over the landmass, controlling more of the internal politics of the area, mainly because they don't have the manpower to control the millions and millions of people in the East, Southeast Asia, India, and China. So the Ming Dynasty will see themselves more isolated as the Europeans attempt to make contact. They really see themselves as the center of the universe, and really nobody else has the culture and the knowledge and the goods that they have, and so why should you trade with outsiders? So they're not going to be driven as hard as some of the other places like India and the Middle East and Africa and Southeast Asia. In the Ming Dynasty, Matteo Ricci, Adam Scholl were two Jesuit priests that tried to convert people, particularly in the emperor's court. They were very ingenious with the technology that came in from Europe, showing the Chinese how to use some of the clocks and the calendars and predicting astronomical things. They're always seen as barbarians by the Chinese. And for this fact, they're not going to be well received. Now, the Ming Dynasty is going to be taken over by the Manchu Qing, or just Manchu Dynasty, in about 1650, and then they'll be in control of China until the 20th century. But again, the Christian church does not convert many there. In Japan, it's a little different story. In the 15th century, the shogun, the daimyo Nobunaga, there was some contact made with the Europeans, particularly the Portuguese, and he used some of the firearms that they had to entrench himself, make himself more powerful. He will eventually overthrow Ashikaga shogun in 1573, and he will be in power, well, at least his line of successors. And he's somewhat receptive to the Christian religion. Mainly, he sees them as a buffer to the Buddhists, who are a little bit aggressive. They frequently led raids on different cities within Japan. They're very powerful. It's a different kind of Buddhism than we see in other places. It wasn't quite as peaceful. So he's going to use Christianity as a way to control the Buddhists. But Tokugawa, who's going to eventually take over as a shogun, will see the Christians as more of a threat to his rule, and he will make an edict that